Hello, everybody, and welcome to Unanswered Questions. Sometimes during our live student broadcasts, we just don't get enough time to answer all the amazing questions.
We never get enough time.
So we're going to go through some of the top upvoted questions from December and answer them right here. So let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
First question. Do you at the White Hatter ever get hacked? Well, we have some pretty good built-in security. I've had personal accounts hacked, not because I had a bad password or I made a mistake, but the company or server that I signed up with, they had a mistake. And so not because of fault of our own, but because of some other organization we signed up with.
Yeah, you never want to say never. Knock on wood. But we got pretty good protections and walls in place to help minimize the risk. So we're definitely safer. But I don't want to say that we will never be hacked because you just never know, right? But we do have proper protocols in place to protect ourselves.
Yeah. Do you travel around the world for your business?
That's what's beautiful about doing what we do virtually now. Like you presented to a school in, where was it? Singapore?
Thailand.
Thailand, that's it. That's what's cool about doing the virtual. We can reach anywhere in the world. Prior to that, we were presenting primarily across Canada into the United States only.
Yeah.
But now we can reach anywhere in the world.
Do you also play Roblox?
I don't.
No, I tried it a bit. Not really for me.
No. You were more into Minecraft, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you're more of a Minecraft guy. Yeah, I don't play Roblox or Minecraft. My favorite game is?
World of Tanks.
World of Tanks, because I'm a boomer.
How do you know, how do people steal your IP addresses without you knowing, but also not knowing?
Well, there's free software out there that allows people to ping your IP to identify your IP, right?
Yep.
So are you going to know that that's happened? Probably not. Are there ways you can protect yourself from doing that? Certainly are there. Using a virtual privacy network, a VPN, can help stealth your IP to make it harder for people to obtain your IP.
Mm-hmm. Can people look you up online? Of course they can.
Yeah, sure.
There's nothing stopping them from doing that.
Nope, not at all. What
happens if you delete the app you don't want to be tracked on? Will they still be able to find your information? Any information you put into their program server, they will still likely have. Some apps do have policies where they will eventually delete it, but that's usually some length of time. But they still may have already analyzed your data. Is online shopping safe?
Well, I think that depends upon where you're purchasing from, right? Is it a reputable site? Not a reputable site. Are they using encryption to protect the information? There's just all kinds of variables. So I guess the answer is it depends.
Yep.
Is it ever 100% safe? No, nothing's ever 100% safe what you do online, but there's a lot of things that are safer.
Why were the White Hatters created?
I'll take that one. It was created because of the interest surrounding what was going on online when it was coming to youth, when it first became popular, and having not just parents, but also educators, even teens themselves reaching out to us going, hey, Darren, you're teaching personal safety. What about this thing that's happening online? Can you please share with us what's going online? And so with that, and the fact that you were the first millennial brought up in today's online world, it was just a really good fit. Yeah.
How do you help?
Go ahead.
We help various ways. Often we provide advice and guidance. Parents, teachers, students will message us with some sort of online challenge, and we'll direct them to the right resource, options, and choices they have available. Sometimes we actually conduct investigations. So there's various ways we assist.
Yeah, I think we've now helped over 300 teens and their families being targeted for sextortion, over 250 families and teens who were considering self-harm or suicide as an option, and we've helped just a ton of individuals with online investigations. Like I just finished 2 over the past 4 days, assisting families with some issues that were happening online.
How do you know if someone is hacking you? I guess there's a couple signs. If you have a computer, your fans are running when they shouldn't, maybe. You have read messages that you didn't read. You've sent messages you didn't mean to send. You're getting pop-ups that you weren't expecting, or maybe your computer's locked out and it's asking for money to unlock it. Well, that's a pretty obvious clue.
In policing, we would call that a clue. Right, a clue.
So there's a few ways you can determine that.
But sometimes it's really hard, right? Sometimes these guys are really good at what it is they do, and you won't know until it's too late.
Yeah. Do you own your hat, or is it part of your uniform? Well, the company does purchase the hats for the presenters, and yeah.
It's our brand, man.
Yeah.
It's our brand.
How do you protect your computer from viruses?
Well, by putting good malware on there. I mean, we use
Malware prevention,
malware prevention software,
not
right?
putting actual malware on there.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. Malware prevention software. And the one that we use is Bitdefender, right?
Yeah, we use Bitdefender here. So having an antivirus software is a great reactionary approach. But preventing it in the first place, making sure what you download is from safe, appropriate, and reputable resources
So
is
important.
probably the first step to prevent that.
So important. Yeah.
Is posting videos safe?
Well, you do this all the time. Maybe you can answer that question.
Well, I mean, we have a video here and it's as safe as what you make it as. If you're doing things in the video that are unsafe or are leaking things about you that you shouldn't be leaking, well, then they're probably unsafe.
Like your address, your phone number, your date of birth, your social insurance number, all those types of things that you shouldn't be posting.
Yeah, people may not have the intention of intentionally posting something in a video, but often it's things in your background that can give you away. So I think being cautious of what's behind you is really important.
And as online investigators, that's a technique that we use all the time.
Yeah. What are some apps that won't track you? There are some paid for, it depends on what kind of apps you're looking for. There's Proton Mail for email. It's not trackable, but again, you pay for that for the full service.
They're few, right? Like most
DuckDuckGo is pretty good for like a Google alternative that doesn't really track you.
No, but they are tracking you. So if a production order was served on DuckDuckGo, you're still going to get information on the user's search history on DuckDuckGo.
Do they keep that?
Yeah, I think they do.
I'll double check their policy on that one.
Yeah. So I think the majority apps, the reality is if it's free, then they got to make their money somehow. And how are they making their money? By collecting data about what you're doing and selling it to vendors and want to sell you stuff. I mean, that's just the reality.
What if your boyfriend changes the passwords before you do? And I think this was relation to sharing passwords in a relationship and planning to break up.
Yeah, I mean, what's really important to understand here is number one, you shouldn't actually be sharing passwords with boyfriends or girlfriends or partners, right? Because although they'll use that as a form of love trust, right? Trust me, if you don't love me, then, if you don't give me your password, then you truly don't love me kind of thing. But no, I mean, the issue is that you shouldn't be doing it in any event unless you're married, right? And then, or with a full-time partner, a little different. But even then, once you decide to leave your partner, I would recommend that you change your password the night before you let your partner know that it's over, right? Because again, it's amazing how many young people and even older adults we've helped that once you break up in that relationship, how the jilted partner will now go into your social media. Why? Because you shared your passwords with them as a form of trust or a form of love. And now what do? They go in, they start posting horrible, evil, ugly things about you and others, and then they change your passwords. You can't take it down. And everybody thinks it's you saying those things when in fact it's your ex-jilted lover, right? So
what console do you play on, and can that console be hacked? Has it ever been hacked?
I'll let you do that one.
Console game, I used to play on PlayStation 3. I had a PlayStation 4, but then I switched to PC. PlayStation's had data breaches in the past. So has Xbox in a way. So anything is possible to be hacked, but gaming consoles don't actively, regularly get hacked individually. Mm-hmm. Can PUBG be hacked? As any other game out there, the only sure, a hacker could potentially hack into their servers and do things. Unlikely. As a company, they probably have decent security. Mm-hmm. It's possible, probably, but probably not very likely. Mm-hmm. Are you more likely to get hacked with an iPhone than an Android phone? I
think I'll answer that one. There's no doubt that iPhones are more secure than Androids. iPhones are what we call sandbox. They use their own system, whereas Android is more open source. So the answer to that question is probably yes, right? That it's more likely that an Android device is going to be hacked than an iPhone.
Yeah, well, at least for now, we'll see how the new laws with Apple having to open up their app stores to other developers. Apple claims that it's going to decrease their security, which
good.
We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. Can other smart household devices be hacked?
The answer is yes.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, we've helped a number of adults who have left relationships where their partners will now use technology to continue to stalk their person. Like we helped one individual whose ex was actually controlling the heat in the house, so remotely using an app. So during the summer months, they would turn the heat up, and then during the winter months, they would turn the air conditioning up, right? So the answer is yes.
Can people hack into your phone if you don't have a passcode? Well, I guess it depends on what your definition of a hack is. That's an issue. Yes and no. Generally, for hacking into a device, you usually have to install a malicious piece of software, a virus, malware, and usually you give that permission, which is running underneath your passcode anyways. So if someone physically has your phone and then there's no passcode on it, well, then sure, they can get in and access everything.
Yeah, I think once you put that password on there, it makes it quite difficult, even for law enforcement today, to get in there, right? I mean, there's ways around it.
They only
sometimes.
have how many tries?
Yeah, I know. It depends, right? 10 tries to get into some devices, brute forcing them and stuff. So it just depends. But for the average person, it's not going to be easy.
How do you know Androids are easier to hack than Apple devices? Well, we just look at the public breaches and the releases of security issues. And when you compare the Android versus Apple, you can see there's a lot more viruses on the Android side than the Apple side. So it's just the data. It just shows that because Android's just more open. How do people create fake QR codes?
This is a good one because we actually did this as a project for a conference we were at, right?
Well, a fake QR code is no more than just a malicious link. So most hacks and scams today function by links, just a scammy link. So a hacker will take the link. You can go just Google QR code maker, and there's tons out there. You just take the link, plop it into a QR code maker, and then it takes the link and makes it a QR code. And now you have a malicious QR code.
I mean, there were some realtors that they were going around. They had their own QR codes, and they were seeing competitors who had their own real estate signs on the property, and then they would put their QR code over theirs so that people looking at the house would go to them instead of the actual person selling the house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen other stories of just public posters and people putting their own QR codes on there.
Yeah, for sure.
Which takes you to maybe not so appropriate sites.
Yeah.
Yeah. What rank are you in Apex Legends, and what other games do you play, and is it easy for those games to be hacked? Ooh, I haven't played Apex in, I want to say 2 years, so I have no idea. I've stopped playing that quite a while ago.
And all I play is World of War Tanks. Have I said that?
Yeah, you have said that. Can a hacker watch your screen on your device? Yeah,
they could.
There's some viruses out there, and if you give those malicious programs permission to view your screen, then
emulate, right?
Yeah, it's possible. Definitely, that's more of a sophisticated hack, so it's not very likely.
No.
If you're, unless you're doing things you shouldn't be doing and downloading things you shouldn't be downloading, then more likely. But yeah, it is possible. Can you be hacked on Snapchat?
Now, I guess, the answer to this question, Brendan, a lot of people, when they think hacked, like hacking is different to different people, right? Like, how would you define what the difference is between a hack and something where they're still gaining access, but it's not a hack?
Yeah, I interpret a hack in the more broad original term as unauthorized use or access.
Yeah.
So yeah, someone could get into your password, sure. Can someone get into the Snapchat code and through the Snapchat code get into your phone or your account? It's possible, probably not very likely. The more common hack would be what we often see as scams, is someone sends you a scammy link through Snapchat Messenger, click on that, you download something you shouldn't download, and then you'll get hacked. So Snapchat can be used as a vehicle to initiate a hack, but itself, it's possible, but probably not very likely. Mm-hmm. What is the most sophisticated hack you have seen?
Stuxnet.
Yeah, I think most security researchers, at least in modern era, can relate back to Stuxnet, which was a computer code virus that was able to get into nuclear power plants, and often they're air gapped, meaning they have no outside data connection. So how do you get a virus in there? So a hacker, potentially a state entity.
Possibly,
maybe 3 letters.
Maybe.
In name.
Starting with a U. Ending with an A.
Or C and ending with an A.
That's true.
But who knows?
Who knows? Who knows?
Potentially through a USB device with a virus, it got plugged into a computer in the internal network and then caused the reactors to spin hotter than they should.
Yeah, centrifuges blew up.
Yeah.
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 Stuxnet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's when people realize going, oh, okay. Yeah. If you're trying to create a good resume, should you include posts about sports and academic achievements?
Absolutely.
Why
Those are
not?
those are all positive things that potential employers want to see, right? So I would definitely include those in a resume.
What do you think about the fact that students don't get a choice if they are shown on a school's Instagram page, but parents get to choose that?
Yeah, I mean,
So like the
Sherrington issue, right?
image consent
Yeah.
form.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I think that students should have the ability to withdraw that consent.
I
No,
agree.
sorry, I don't want to be taking a picture posted on Instagram for the school. No, thank you. But then there's parents like, yes, my child is allowed, but then you have that child-parent relationship. Yeah. I personally think that youth should have that agency to withdraw that consent. That's my belief. Some people may think otherwise, but
No, I don't disagree with you, actually. I mean, allowing you to have some agency on this issue and child rights when it comes to issues being posted about their identity on the internet is important.
if you're applying for a job or university, is it better to make your social media public?
Yeah, I'll take that one because I talk about this. Yeah, I mean, it all depends upon what's in your social media, right? Like, I actually think that once you reach, upper level grade 10, 11, and 12 in university, you should be making your social media open for potential employers to see. Because a lot of employers today, they're no longer waiting for you to apply to them. They're actually seeking you out or potential employees out because of what it is you're doing online. So if you're using your social media in a positive way, if you're leveraging it in a positive way, what better way to demonstrate to a potential employer, look, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is how I can benefit you as the employer if you hire me.
Yeah. Is there a way to protect your image from declothing AI apps?
This is becoming a big issue. Like, we've now had 2 incidences in Canada now where programs were used at the high school level where teens used AI to create deep fakes of teen girls at schools that weren't real. And it's all they need is a facial picture, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I have been reading, one of the things you can do is you can slightly kind of make the picture not so in focus so that if they actually screen capture that picture, then it will still look unnatural if morphed. However,
The problem is then all your Instagram photos are then out of focus. And then
Exactly.
what's the point of having an Instagram page?
exactly. And is AI getting to the point now where they can take a blur and clear it out? Yes,
Yep.
indeed. We're seeing that happening too now, right? Where you can send in old family pictures that are really blurry, and these new AI programs will make them crystal clear. So a picture taken in the 1930s looks like it was taken just yesterday.
And in color.
And in color. Yeah.
So unfortunately, the answer is no.
No, I mean, there is a movement afoot right now to try and develop technology to let you know if a picture that you're seeing online was AI generated, right? There's a
Yes.
movement to try and make that happen, but we're not even close yet in having that, right?
I think we need in our world where you have your browsers and if you're scrolling through a picture and it's on your browser will indicate to you, like how you have that lock icon? Although that's going away now, but maybe you replace that with a AI icon going, hey, what you're looking at, the browser thinks this picture is AI generated.
And I think that's where they're going. I think that's where I see that movement going.
That's the only way I see this as to make this widespread, to make people more aware. Because otherwise, you have to copy every image you see online and put it into a dedicated AI detector, which is just not
There's so
doable.
many positives with AI, but like anything positive, you can weaponize it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think that this is going to be the big deal when it comes to social safety and digital literacy is the misuse and weaponization of AI.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the only way to combat that is built into the browsers by default.
But everybody has to be on board for that, right?
But if the browsers mandate that, here, Safari's update, Firefox update, Chrome's update, you have this indicator, like that lock icon, by default, it's there.
Yeah, good point.
I think that's the only way to make that doable.
But it's challenging. Oh boy, is it challenging.
Do you think phones, of course, this is more relevant from today. Do you think phones should be banned from schools. Why or why not?
I'm going to take that one on. Yeah, presently here in British Columbia, there's a movement afoot by one of the political parties to say if they're elected in, they're going to ban phones in schools, much like they did in Ontario and Quebec. Well, if you actually look at Ontario and Quebec, they haven't actually banned phones. They still allow phones to be used for educational purposes in the classrooms, for the purposes of educational purposes, with the permission of a teacher, right? So we are not in favor of complete plans. Do I believe that students shouldn't be allowed to have unmediated free range use of cell phones in classrooms? Absolutely, right? Like students sitting in class with their earphones in, listening to music while the teacher's teaching, or scrolling and doing TikToks and Snapchats, distracting themselves and others in class? Absolutely not, right? But I think a mediated approach to this is what's important, and that's exactly what Belmont High School has done here in Victoria.
Yeah, I think with the whole phone, I think calling a phone ban, I think just scores easy political points.
It's
rather often these bans are more phone restrictions in the classroom, and then someone's saying a phone ban. Does that include during lunch period?
Yeah.
What about during break time?
Or what about students who have IEPs? Or what about students who need them for medical reasons because they're type 1 diabetes and they're using their cell phones to help monitor their blood glucose, right?
Students who need them for accessibility reasons, or students who have, in today's economy, students who might have to go to work. And maybe they need to coordinate scheduling on their lunch break.
And, the other factor, you got me heated on this one. The other factor here is that, these things are ubiquitous, right? And they're in all our lives, right? And so as a result of that, what better way to teach digital literacy and the use of these things in mediated ways than in schools? However, a part of that needs to be educating educators on how to integrate these into classrooms in an appropriate pedagogical way. And that in itself can become a challenge, right?
Yeah, and if there's government bans on phones, who are the people who actually have to enforce that?
Yeah, and
the teachers.
And we got some research coming out of places like Sweden and the Netherlands that's showing that their bans actually didn't help at all. In fact, it hurt from an educational standpoint. So they're revisiting it, and again, starting to allow schools now to say, hey, listen, teachers, you can decide when and if the students are going to use these for the purposes of education.
But what about that one school that used smartphone AR technology because obviously school tech can't do AR. Come on, it's school tech.
Right.
It's like, what, 10 years old?
And trying to buy an AR goggle is just too cost prohibitive. So what the educator did was they let their students use their cell phones to do that, to learn about that technology. So good use of technology to engage in and heightened education and learning within a school environment. Good use of the cell phone in a classroom. But yet, if there's a full ban, that wouldn't happen, right? That just makes no sense to me. And
what are they gonna do? Give students iPads instead?
And we hear that a lot. Like, oh, how about if we just give them iPads? Well, all iPads are a growing up of the iPhone. Whatever this iPhone can do, an iPad can do.
And hey, the new iPads have cell SIM card slots. They're just the exact same thing.
Exactly.
What? Sorry, who's gonna pay for them?
Yeah, and who's going to lock out the SIM card in the iPad? Because what's to stop a student from going and get a SIM card at 7-Eleven and going to school and going, boop, popping it in, and now they got cell phone coverage on the iPad.
So that means it has to be owned by the school and the district and the government.
And then who's going to pay for that?
What, is the government going to pay for a tablet for every student?
I know. It bewilders. But it's a hot button issue that scores political points with many, many, many parents, right? And I think that's because of the lack of knowledge.
I think both left and right-wing politics, it's easy to blame technology.
Yeah.
Regardless of where you fit on the political spectrum.
It's got to be the iPhone.
No matter where you
all these problems, it's got to be the iPhone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not our problem or their problem. It's technology's problem. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
We should do a whole show on that very issue. We should. We should.
This clip is not going to be part of the YouTube Shorts.
No.
It's way longer than a minute. But that's okay. Maybe TikTok.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe we'll do a live show.
We should.
That'd be good. Where was I? Oh, yes. Okay. If you are posting your opinion politely, but others take offense to it, are they being oversensitive, or should you just stay quiet?
I mean, we have the right to say what it is you want to say. Just understand that whatever you post, you're now accountable for it. So, one of the things I am starting to kind of change my mind on is sometimes those who stay silent it may not necessarily be in the best interest of what it is you're talking about. So when you are talking about a topic that may be sensitive, it's important to do so in a what's the word I'm looking for? Like emotional way, if you know what I mean. So, but if we stay silent, then we allow the minority sometimes who are more vocal to take control of the narrative, and that's not necessarily in your best interest, right?
But if you're doing everything politely, and sure, there are going to be trolls and haters out there who are going to just target you regardless. But if you're doing things politely, I think you're totally fine.
Yeah, I agree.
If you posted something inappropriate when you were younger, like 11 years old, and you're about to graduate now, will that still affect you even though you have changed?
Probably not. I mean, at 11 years old, probably not.
I guess it depends on what you're looking to do.
Yeah.
If you're looking to get into politics, okay, maybe, possibly. I can definitely see your opponents using that against you.
Here's when you were 11 though, and all of a sudden you're graduating at the age of 17, that was 7 years ago, and you're 11 and you didn't have a lot of critical thinking skills.
Have you seen politics today?
That's true. They act more like 8-year-olds sometimes. But, really though, at 11 years old, if you've learned from your mistakes and you're not making and posting the same critical things or things that you shouldn't be posting, that shows change, that shows development, and that's a good thing, right? But if you were doing bad things when you were 11 years old and posting, and you're still posting it as you're getting into 16, 17, 18, then we got an issue, right?
Yeah. If I delete my Instagram account, will it still be visible somehow? Not to the public Instagram audience, but Instagram, Facebook, Meta will still have your data, and they will often retain those photos for X amount of time.
Or if anybody's screen captured anything you posted on the platform and then posted it elsewhere, that'll still be
right. If you had a public Instagram page, it might have been captured,
right,
or cached. So it depends, but it won't be visible actively to the public internet. How can we know if there is a virus on a website?
I think we already answered that one a little bit earlier, right?
It's a different question, and you're never going to know. If you're going to mainstream, well-funded, secure websites, you're probably going to be fine. If you're going to weird websites that you probably shouldn't be going to,
The Hub,
whatever you may be going to, and you click on stuff, well, then maybe you might get something you shouldn't. So you're never going to know, but just be cautious of the sites you are going to.
for sure.
If I have a massive following on my social media from videos, how do I avoid hate and negative videos trying to expose me?
You won't be able to. That's the issue, right? Anybody can say anything they want about you online.
The moment you go into the public forum of the internet or out in physical public, people can disagree and say things against you. That's just how it works.
Yeah, I always say kill them with kindness and kill them with facts, right? As long as you're being kind and what you're posting is factual, ultimately that, in my experience, will always, the cream rises to the top that way. So.
Yeah, responding back in hate often just fuels it even further.
That's all it does, yeah.
Can you install distraction blockers for web browsers on a phone?
Yeah, there are some apps out there now that you can program it so it goes, hey, listen, you've been on here now for 20 minutes. Maybe you want to take a break, right? Like, I know that Apple has now got something into their new software,
it's in their screen time function,
right.
I think.
Right.
And I don't know Android. I don't know on top of my head, but there are apps that can help you manage your phone usage.
For sure.
Which social media platforms do you consider the safest? I don't really name the platforms because there's so many different ones. For me, it's what services do they offer? Does the platform allow you to lock it down to make it private? Can you report bad behavior? Can you block people? If you're using a social network and you don't have those features, you're probably going to come across more issues. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But most of the major ones have those features built in.
I agree. And I don't know about safest. I would use safer, right? So,
yeah. Well, if you have all the proper features built in, it would be the safest compared to the other ones.
No, it would be safer.
Okay. Apple or Android?
Apple.
Which one do you prefer? We have Apples is what we primarily use.
Apple.
Although, yeah. We do have Androids, but our daily drivers are iPhones.
Yeah, didn't you just get a brand new iPhone?
Yeah, I got the 15 for its video recording features.
Yeah. Pretty skookum phone. I could probably buy a new car with the value of that sucker. Anyways,
It's for the camera and the
sure it
and
is.
the app. It's for the Apple Log.
Yeah, sure
The
it
only
is.
the only increase, the only difference between the regular iPhone 15 and the Pro Max version is just the camera quality.
you
Because we're in video production, might as well get the one with the camera.
For sure. You can do some cool VR stuff with that now too, can't you? Or AR?
AR and with the 15 regular as well. The only difference, like I said, is just the camera. More or less is the difference between the iPhone 15s.
How many gigs is that one?
I
Or
think
is that a terabyte?
this was a terabyte. But I was actually playing with the other day and just to play with the camera. And at max video settings, like the highest quality, only 2 hours of recording.
And it's a terabyte.
I know.
Holy
I was like, oh, okay.
wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. At ProRes 442 at, Apple Log and all that stuff. It's like, oh, yeah, that's actually
That tells
probably
you how much data
that's probably this camera is probably more powerful than our actual DSLR cameras on the set.
well, that's why some Hollywood producers have used the iPhone, the Pro Max, to shoot like Hollywood quality movies, right?
Yeah. Is it possible for hackers to find encrypted passwords? Yeah, sometimes when companies are hacked and hackers leak passwords, they're often encrypted. Thankfully, most encryption methods are pretty good today, but we've seen in the past some companies, maybe they don't use the best encryption standards, and some of which can be easily cracked. So it is possible depending on the type of encryption.
I like this next question.
Google or Microsoft?
That's kind of like Apple or Android. My answer to that would be, well, what about Firefox? What about Brave? It depends upon what you're going to use the browser for.
What if the question is just about the company? Google as a company or Microsoft as a company?
I would still go with Firefox or Brave.
You're going with the browsers. Okay. You're not going to answer that one.
I
Okay.
mean, both of those companies, they make money off of data collection, right? Like, who's more ethical than the other one? I don't know, right?
I
Like,
think Microsoft has a better privacy standard than Google.
okay.
In my experience.
I don't necessarily disagree with you on that.
I know a lot of our Canadian government agencies use Microsoft
Yeah.
because you can choose where your servers are located. And obviously, it has to be in the country you're in.
Firefox, Brave.
So, yeah. If you see someone's location, are you allowed to meet up with them without consent? Ooh.
Yes, not advisable.
Yeah, I mean, now if you're doing that over and over again,
I call that creeping, right? Like, that's creepy, man.
if you're doing that over and over again, I think now we got potential
Stalking, criminal harassment, yeah.
issues. But if you just do it just one time, assuming you're not doing anything else malicious when you meet up with them, but just being in the same public space as somebody is not inherently itself illegal.
Let's
But
be honest, that's creepy.
it's creepy. But
It's
again,
creepy.
it's not from my understanding, not inherently. You can be in the same space as somebody.
Yeah, I guess. And, if maybe you've learned on social media that, a famous singer is going to be at your local park doing then you turn up there, right?
Okay,
And
well,
that's reasonable.
Yeah.
But if you see somebody who you might be attracted to, and then all of a sudden you're turning up wherever they're located, that's creepy.
Oh, my ex is at the mall. I'm gonna go there as well.
That's just creepy. Creepy.
Yeah. If you drew somebody naked, is that illegal?
It depends.
Wow.
The courts in Canada have said if it's somebody who's depicted to be under the age of 18, they still see that as child sexual abuse material.
Yeah, it's interesting. The child sexual abuse material, the definition in terms of the Canadian law is depicted, which is a wide array of interpretations and possibilities. So,
Now, I also think if it's an adult and you drew it and then you're posting it publicly as a weapon, you got defamatory libel. You also have maybe here in British Columbia a violation of the Intimate Image Protection Act. Yeah, I think so.
Possibly. Yeah, because depicted's in there as well.
Yeah.
So you'll have to check your local laws in terms of the breadth of the scope of what considers a nude.
Yeah. I mean, we've had some student ask us, so what about anime, right? We draw a lot of anime of nakedness. Well, depending upon the situation, it could be considered child sexual abuse material. Right?
But the anime producers, the creators say, oh, in their official documents, these people are over the age of 18.
Yeah.
Even though they might be depicted younger, but they officially state that they're over it.
They can state whatever they want, but in the end, that'll be up to a court to decide.
But again, the court has to determine.
That's right. And that could be a challenge.
I haven't seen that yet in terms of anime.
No, but we've seen it with regards to cartoons or drawings. We've got some case law here in Canada on that.
Right, but I would assume that from what I've seen, like the drawings were intentionally of someone under the age, and they were stated to be under the age.
I don't know about stated, but it depicted somebody that appeared to be under the age of 18. Right?
Yeah, I guess it depends how artistic you go, because the more obscure you go,
it's definitely not black and white. It's
not black and white.
It's all shades of gray. Excuse the pun, right? When it comes to drawing, right? So
yeah, but yeah, that's a good question. Does the school know if we are browsing using our own computer or device when connected to the school Wi-Fi? Yeah, actually, yeah.
Yep.
Typically, when it comes to network administration, the Wi-Fi routers will have data of your MAC address and other identifiers about your device. And usually, if I'm assuming the school is doing proper admin security, they will have a record of, all the devices connected. Assuming, yes. We'll have a record. So it really does depend on how they manage their systems, but most organizations will have a record of all devices connected into their system. So more than likely. Do you need a warrant?
Okay, so I'll take that one. And I think it's probably specific to getting into a phone or into a computer, right? To look at private stuff. If it's law enforcement, the answer is yes. Now there's two ways to get in there with informed consent. You give permission for them to do it, so they don't need a warrant if you give them permission. But if you say no and they have enough grounds to get an order from a judge to get in there, then yes, they need a warrant to do that. Now, principals are a little different, right? Principals here in the province of British Columbia, what the courts have said is that in exigent circumstances where there's a danger to the school, to students or staff, then a principal has the right to take your phone and look in it without a warrant. Do they have the right to demand your passcode? No. They don't. But if it's an open phone and not locked, if it's exigent circumstances, they have the right to seize it without warrant and look in it.
Okay, but what if?
Oh, here we go.
Face ID.
Oh, yeah.
Sit there, get the phone, scan the face.
So go ahead. Right, kind of thing.
I mean that's
it's a good point because a really good example, and this is a little morbid to a degree, but one of the ways that law enforcement, if they find a dead body and they don't know who that is, and that body has a cell phone on them, and that cell phone has a thumbprint indicator on lock, then one of the ways that we can get in is taking the thumb of the deceased person, putting it on the thumb, and opening it up. Yeah. Or how your mom one day did it to me, where I'm sleeping in my sleepy chair, and she needed to get in on my phone. She didn't want to wake me up, so what did she do? She took lift my hand without me knowing and put my thumb on the thumbprint and got into my phone that way, right?
Yeah. So, now, do we need a warrant for the work that we do? Well,
we can't get a warrant.
No, we're not.
We're civilians.
But what we do is we do open source intelligence.
Correct.
So all of the data we collect is openly available. Or if we're doing security work, we might have a contract with an organization, and then that's the informed consent.
Or what we do is we assist law enforcement in getting their warrant, because that's what just happened last week, where we helped a local law enforcement agency here in British Columbia find a piece of information that was missing. We were able to locate, which was kind of the icing on the cake to give them what they needed to get that production order.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's interesting in how that works. Sometimes when we've helped families, because they went to the police, they didn't have the information needed or the evidence, but the data you can collect as a private organization can be very different than a public agency in terms of what they're allowed to do. But public policing agencies are allowed to accept information.
Correct.
But they may not always be able to actually seek information.
Correct.
And
then with the information they get from us, they can now use that for the purposes of obtaining a search warrant.
Yeah.
So a good example with the law enforcement agency I just helped, I am now put down as a witness in that court case, right? Where I could now be called as a witness to go, how did you find this piece of information? At which time that's what I would disclose on the stand.
Which was all collected publicly available.
Absolutely.
Is the type of hacking legal? depends on the type of hacking. Sure.
Pen testing, right?
Yeah.
Penetration testing, which is big right now, where agencies or individuals will be hired by big companies to see if you can hack into their systems. And once you identify it, then you know how to fix it, right? So that would be a really good, it's what we would call ethical hacking.
Yeah, but usually there's a contract or an agreement to do that.
Right.
I'm just testing your system.
Right.
Okay, then you breach their system without any previous consent.
But if you're actually trying to get into somebody else's system without their permission, that is illegal in Canada, right? We have several federal offenses under
Most
the code.
other
Countries?
modern country has laws around that as well.
You would hope.
Yeah, do check your local laws, but typically yes. And does incognito mode work? And how do I stop anybody from seeing what I'm doing online?
Well, all incognito or private viewing mode does is it prevents the history on your device from collecting where you're going. But never be fooled by the fact that if you're using incognito or private viewing, that your internet service provider, Shaw, Bell, TELUS, or maybe you're in the United States using Verizon, they're still recording what it is you're doing, and that information is attainable by law enforcement by way of warrant.
Yeah, there is no one single way to make yourself anonymous online. First off, use incognito private browsing, but also use a VPN, which you typically got to pay for.
Some will go to Tor.
Yeah, maybe changing your browser ID information, randomize that. Hey, why don't you install a private operating system like Tails? And then you see, it's all these layers you got to build upon to really be anonymous. But it doesn't matter if you're posting a public video. Here I am in my bedroom. Well, that just defeats the whole purpose.
And there may be something in the background that we go, hey, we now know where that's located, right? We missed a question. What chatting platform do you recommend? For younger people, Kinzu.
Yeah, Kinzu's great for families to communicate,
great for
and
families.
message together.
Right. Built with security by design at the very creation of it, right? That's why we love it. That's why we endorse it.
Whatever chatting, and for like older teens and families and adults, it's whatever chatting platform most of your friends probably use. They're all relatively the same. If you're looking for private communications, then you're looking at Proton or
Signal.
Signal, yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Couldn't remember the name of that.
I mean, most chatting platforms now, including the ones owned by some of the bigger vendors like Meta, they're now being encrypted, right? Like, so the encryption is there. Having said that, the data is still being held by the vendors. But now the question is the information the vendor's getting, is it encrypted or do they have it encrypted first? Because again, when you send the information, it's unencrypted and then the platform encrypts it.
Yeah,
so,
you're going to have to check in terms of what your privacy threshold are. Yeah. Are you wanting to be private from the public, from hackers, or the government? There's different things you do depending on the level of private you want to be.
Correct. Yeah,
if that's what you're concerned about.
Yeah, so for sure.
And
some good questions again.
Yeah,
some good
questions.
I still think we need to do a whole video on the cell phone ban issue, right? I think it's very topical right now, right across our country, which is Canada, but as well as other places. Because there's a lot of fear-based juvenoia associated with this that makes it great political fodder that we don't necessarily agree with.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So those are the questions from December, and those are all from students that we just didn't get time to get to. And 2024, we got a bunch more programs scheduled. So we will do more of these, and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everybody.